DFMCO, hello and welcome to this new season of Double Feature Movie Club. I am joined this week, as always, with my co-host Diane and our guest this week, Harrison. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Nola!
We're back. We are back for a new season. Are you excited? I'm pretty excited.
There's no place
I'm
I'd rather
excited.
be.
That's good. We're off on a weird day for our live stream. We will go back to our Sundays, but we have some plans tomorrow, which we'll get into later, I guess.
Have big plans.
We have big plans, the three of us. So luckily, we were all free on a Saturday night. So to talk about movies for our
Wonder
lunch.
what that says about us.
Yeah. But yes, lots to catch up on. We have Ava in the chat saying, yay, new season. Season three. Can you believe it? 31 episodes, Diane.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's amazing I haven't killed you. It's a good thing we're remote.
Yes.
Can you duplicate Ava's chat message and just like plaster it all over the screen? Because yay, new season is my feeling right now.
And Harrison, how many episodes have you done?
Horn intro. This is my third, I think.
Oh, I think you've done more than that.
Oh.
No. You talked Mandy.
Maybe my fourth.
Yeah. You had one that was lost that had awful audio, and then you had one that was just you and I, one of the only people who's hosted it. The only person who's hosted it with just me, without Diane, minus Diane.
That was a fun show.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. But I'm excited. We're back.
I'm so glad you filled in on that one, Harrison. Let me tell you. After watching the first 30 minutes of that movie, I didn't think I was going to survive it.
I don't think we've reunited on the show since then.
We haven't. I'll call in the favor, Diane. Don't you worry.
I don't know what you're complaining about. It was a really great time, great movie to discuss. And if you do want to know more,
I agree wholly with Cade.
We just released our best and worst of last season of season 2, and when the movies were more fresh on our minds. Yeah. We recorded it right after, but we released it last week. It was we talk about sort of what was our top 5 and our bottom 3 movies, and Diane, it was fascinating because some of her least favorite movies were on my top 5.
I don't think anyone should be surprised by that at all. I don't think they should be.
Yeah, But I
noticed my top 3 were not in your bottom at all. I mean,
that's true.
So, yeah,
that's very true.
Just your top ones were in the bottom of my list.
Well, sometimes it works out that way, Diane. But some of your top ones weren't in my list.
Sure.
But watch that. That's a fun one. Or listen to it or whatever. I think now we got to plug new this season also is we are on social media now. Double Feature Movie Club is. You should follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the 2 things that we're on. On Double Feature MC. That is where you can find us, and there's a lot of exclusive content on there that you'll find. We're going to do a new sort of thing. You can also follow myself on TikTok. We'll do some things for this, or you can get that same content on our Instagram. But yes, it is exciting. A lot of stuff we're planning there. It's been kind of fun this past week. Diane and I both manning our Instagram account, having 2 different personalities there with what we but it's fun. It's a fun little thing. I've been having fun there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had fun with you this week on Twitter and pointing out, mm-hmm. The little survey and all the things from the 70s and 80s and 90s, you give yourself a point for not having ever experienced it. And I would love to know what your 7 points were, besides the floppy disk.
The floppy disk was one of them that jumped out to me that I So essentially there was a list that was like a never have I ever of all of these things, because Diane's a boomer. Don't know if you know that, Harrison. And
can't tell.
She's never told me. Why?
Yeah.
Why were you hiding the fact that you're a boomer from me, Diane?
Right.
So I had used a rotary phone.
Just so people know, Harrison is not blind. He's just sarcastic.
Yeah. I forget
Never have you ever.
Yeah. I was trying to look up the other ones of that. I, of course, never had an AOL email address. Never did have that one.
No, I did.
I never had a MySpace account, which Diane said that she had a MySpace account, which I was promised Alex that I would know about this MySpace account. So tell me a little bit about this MySpace account.
Next time we see Alex, we'll talk about MySpace.
Okay. Which Alex is going to be on in just a few weeks.
Yeah. We'll talk about MySpace.
Yes. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. Ava had one too.
Yeah. Well, so I've never sent a postcard. In fact, I've never understood really the point of postcards.
Really?
So that's another one that's just...
You've sent a postcard, haven't you, Harrison?
I have sent a postcard. I've sent postcards from really fun places to send postcards from. The point of them really is, if you have downtime on vacation and you're not buying a bunch of souvenirs for your loved ones back home, sending a postcard is a great way to just be like, I'm thinking of you, and I'm not a total jerk.
But doesn't it have to be...
This is the only souvenir you're going to get from me.
Okay, I guess that, I mean...
I include that message in every postcard I send.
Yeah.
Just P.S.
P.S.
Expect nothing more. But today...
Thoughts are the only thing that counts.
Yeah. Today, I actually... so I went to this vintage show here in Tulsa, and there was a whole section of just people selling old postcards, vintage postcards. Mm-hmm. And that was bizarre to me, that there was like several booths of just these files of these postcards, and they're split up by like, these ones are with birds, and these ones are with, some of them are places, but then some of them are just funny or just random postcards, and they section them out by topic. One of them had one of them we noticed had there was a Hitler section. So there was Hitler postcards.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't know who would collect those. So
there's no telling. I'm part of this doesn't have anything to do with Hitler, but I'm part of an organization that sends postcards to people reminding them to vote in certain elections.
Certain elections.
So there's this huge organization. It's called Postcards to Voters. Mm-hmm. And, I could see I have seen where people sent vintage postcards for that.
Huh.
But yeah, I've sent hundreds of postcards out. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Lots of fun. Yeah. It's a good way to volunteer time if you have time to sit and write postcards. But anyway.
So they're personalized, each one?
Yeah.
Like you write them, handwrite them and all that? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A lot of fun.
Well, I didn't think we was going to talk so much about postcard-related things.
Well,
here. We haven't
I have the list up. I have the list up, so we can ask Karen some of these too. Used a rotary phone. Have you ever used a rotary phone?
In fact, I have, yes.
I've used a rotary phone.
Good for you, Harrison. You have to do good. Mm-hmm. A floppy disk. You ever used a floppy disk?
Are you making me go through every single one of these? Really? I was gonna try a segue from postcards to the mail fraud of Bernie Madoff, but no, here we're talking. Okay, have I used a typewriter? Yes, I have. Yes. And photos of the phone camera.
We don't.
Yep.
Are you looking it up or
Floppy
something?
disk, yep.
Or is she saying okay.
Right here in front of me?
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know how. It's not all that.
I wasn't
going to
ask you all of them, but because I know there's several that you have. Obviously, you've watched a movie on a VHS tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sent and received a fax. You're an older dude, right?
I've sent a fax.
Lost part of his ear.
You can still send a fax if you go to Reese's.
Really, Reese's has a fax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
you ever
well,
read Encyclopedia.
My
parents had the whole set.
The whole set of encyclopedias.
Yes.
Do you ever read, Harrison?
They can be fun reads, depending on the topic.
Well, we have a lot to catch up on here besides post-it notes and facts-related things. We've of course watched a few things since we've been on last. A lot of things have changed. I have a new. It's off screen now, but I have a new Bigfoot thing over here, part of the set, so that's nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
Mine's
in front of me. I should have put it where it was behind me.
Yeah, I did want to announce that one of the biggest developments that's happened in my life, that's going to happen to everyone here in the Tulsa metro area. I mentioned this a lot during the last season of Double Feature Movie Club, my love affair with Summer Moon Coffee. Well, we're getting a Summer Moon Coffee here in Tulsa, so happy to announce that here live on the thing. We're looking for a sponsorship, so sponsor us, Summer Moon.
Hey, Summer Moon. Yeah. We should give them a call.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to stop saying so nice things if I don't get paid to say them. So that opens next month. But anyways,
why don't we just do the show there?
Yeah, let's just
until they sponsor us.
Just people randomly in line. Have you seen Wizard of Lies? Have you seen the movie Wizard of Lies? What's your thoughts on it? And before we get to the actual movies on here that we're going to talk about, Diane and I have been watching Last of Us, like most people in America. Going to watch that tomorrow night after our thing that we all have to do together. So excited about that. It's a great show. Nothing more. Do you have anything more to say about it, Diane? Outside that, it's great.
I just know he is rocking that daddy thing, man. He's really rocking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you said that, Diane.
There's a lot of, I'm not dead. My mom even still says that. She's 95. She goes, I'm not dead yet.
Oh, I thought you were saying your mom says that Pedro Pascal is walking that daddy thing.
Oh, she would if she ever saw him. Trust me. But anyway, he's definitely rocking it. That's for sure. But yeah, it's I didn't play the video game, so I have nothing to compare it to. And I know there's a lot of reaction videos and things like that where people are either really positive, the video game players, or they're really negative. It just kind of depends, I guess, on their perspective, like on the video game.
It's interesting because I never played the video game, but the video game is incredibly popular, and I just everyone I was like, that's my favorite video game, and whenever I played it, it was like. I played the beginning part of it. I played essentially what is the first episode of the show. And that's how far I got into it. I actually, here it is. Last of Us. I didn't like what I didn't like about it is this is the type of video game I don't like, and that is one that seems like you're on a path and you're just like clicking X it wanted to be a movie. It was like a lot of cutscenes and a lot of it felt like I was on a track instead of I'm like, well, just show it to me, just be a film if you want to be a film. I don't know why I have to sit here and click X every so often just so I can participate in a film. But the story, I guess, is good. Listening and they turned it into a film. Yeah, and so I'm enjoying it. And like that's what it probably always should have been. Because otherwise, I'm like, I don't. To me, if it's not an open world game or some sort of platform thing. Those are the two options that I think video games should be. I don't like anything in between. I want so it's the
well to talk about that.
It's time TV to smash series, that Pac-Man arcade behind you, Cade. Which falls into neither of those two categories.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as the TV series goes, I like the fact that for the dystopian world that it's projecting, it's not all black and white. You know what I mean? There's color and there's nuance to it that you don't normally see in those type of shows. Usually it's just all gray and everything, acid rain is falling out of the sky, that kind of thing. But they have the cinematographers have no problem embracing color, and showing us color, the grass is green in many places,
Yes.
And then the episode with Nick Offerman, is that you say his last name?
Yes.
Those two guys deserve an Emmy nod for that episode. That was some just heart-wrenching, and it was beautiful and heart-wrenching. And I think I went all the way from elation to crying in one episode. I never do that, but it was really, really well done. Well directed. I mean, good story, well directed. I understand those characters are not in the video game, but I don't think I care because I never played the video game.
Yes. Well, right? The guy who wrote all of these, who wrote, of course, Chernobyl, I had just learned that he's the same guy who wrote, this is crazy to write Chernobyl and this. He's the same guy who wrote Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4,
oh gosh,
Superhero Movie, gosh. Hangover Part 2, Hangover Part 3, and Identity Thief.
Wow.
Same guy.
Oh my gosh.
So talk about
a
glow up.
Guy.
Yeah. He's written all of this.
And you have to respect the range.
Yeah, no kidding. I haven't seen all those movies, but I wouldn't watch Identity Thief again. I mean, unless you paid me a lot of money.
Yes.
But Chernobyl was really good. But again, the color palette of that movie was very gray, and the world was dead, and this End of Us isn't like that.
Yes.
And I love the dynamic between Daddy Pedro, who and the girl, and that their chemistry and the way that they butt heads and all that is so real,
Yeah, so. And that was sort of the lifeblood of the video game, of what you would hear is that sort of dynamic. But in order to cast that and find that again and everything, that's pretty magical. I did also see Ant-Man. Have to say that Quantumania. And outside of like Guardians 3, I think I'm done with Marvel. I think
there were a lot of people retiring from Marvel on Twitter this weekend.
Got to be one of the worst things I've seen. And to see an audience kind of like people like, oh, that's great in this audience. That's like really like they liked it. And then other people hate it and everything. Like it was fascinating to sort of see why people sort of go to the theater and everything. I mean, truthfully, you wouldn't have the backlash that you have from this movie, in my opinion, if it just had like maybe like 7 more jokes. Like that's all it would have taken to get the mass audience on their side. But it was dry, it was boring, and it was meaningless and disposable.
Which is too bad because Paul Rudd is probably out of all the MCU actors is probably the most comedic.
Yeah.
So why aren't they using him like Ryan Reynolds does? Yeah. I mean,
and it is the ugliest film I've seen in a long time. In a movie that they think that they're setting up these shots like, isn't this magnificent and isn't this supposed to be like awe-inspiring? And I'm like, this is the grossest film I've ever seen in my life, visually speaking. It's just sludge. It's the same guy who directed the last two, Peyton Reed, who that's what he's mostly known for, is these Ant-Man films, and he did one of those Mandalorian episodes that people love, but it was just I was just shocked because it's all green screen. It's all them in front of green screen things and everything. And people want to say it's in front of the volume, and it's like, no, it's not in front of the volume. It's green screen.
So he's pretty done with that, man.
Well, did you see Michael Douglas. They're like, Michael Douglas, would you return for a fourth Ant-Man? And he said, only if they kill me. And he's like, I'm ready to die.
Boomers!
This whole film he has like a hearing aid in, and you think it's just nothing, but it ends up being a plot device. Spoiler alert, I guess. But I'm like, oh, okay, that's nice. I mean, if he has to have that, I mean, but it's very obvious in the thing and everything. And he's very
nice that he's not actually going down the Bruce Willis route.
Exactly. But he,
bless his heart.
yeah, but you could tell, like Michael Douglas, they give him a few things, but he's checked out. He's checked out of this role. So, I mean, and it's just kind of sad to see that they just keep stringing him along. Michelle Pfeiffer, of course, in what we're got to watch today too. She's in it, and they give her a lot of things. Still not really in the Michelle Pfeiffer lane, I feel like it's an odd character. I mean, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. She's one of my favorite, but I don't think that Hollywood has been able to write towards an older Michelle Pfeiffer, right? I don't think that they have not been able to utilize her right in this landscape, which is sad because she's one of the greats, in my opinion.
Well, we'll talk about it in the next movie, how she was nominated for several awards for that role that she played, which I thought she did amazing.
I thought she did great in this one too. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really talking about that one, because it's not like a huge. I mean, like there's some huge blockbuster.
You mean
things.
So you mean the Hollywood superhero franchise?
Yes.
Found the right
that
okay.
And like she was in that Dark Shadows where she was weirdly in that Tim Burton movie. That was like that's not. There's a few like she's not been in the front mainstream of things. She was in some movie that she was also nominated for not too long ago. But she should be in a bunch of. She should have Meryl Streep like films. Like she's not maybe that, but she is like I think I don't know. I think she should have a lot more. Like I mean, you see some people that have a lot of these roles, and Michelle should get some because I think she's incredibly talented. Anyways, are you ready to jump into our films?
Stardust. Did you ever see Stardust?
Oh, Stardust. She's great in Stardust.
She is so good in that.
But Stardust was like 17 years ago now, probably.
Yeah. I love the fact that she was in that with Robert De Niro. And now she's back with Robert De Niro again. She was
in Robert De Niro in The Family. Did you ever see The Family? That was another one that was them too. So they've worked together a few different times.
Yeah, they have, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. So... Great. Okay. We're talking this week. We're actually going to start the show now. We're done catching up. We see each other all the time. We can do that whenever.
We can catch up tomorrow.
We can catch up tomorrow at our mystery event that we're going to tease throughout all this. It's going to be a letdown when it's sexually said. But we are... So we're going to talk about Wizard of Lies, Bernie Madoff movie. Barry Levinson-directed, Bernie Madoff, Michelle Pfeiffer, and then we're going to talk about our second film, which is Big Eyes, which is Tim Burton-directed, stars Amy Adams and Christoph Waltz. But first, Wizard of Lies. We're going to do our little musical interlude, and then Diane's going to tell us the plot.
Oh, I am? Oh, great.
The Wizard of Lies. And then, she's got a story to share, too. So be ready for that.
Oh, I'm sure I do. Okay, so Wizard of Lies was an HBO production that outlined the Bernie Madoff story. In 2008, Bernie Madoff, stockbroker, investment advisor, he made headlines around the world for his largest Ponzi scheme ever created in the world. Yeah, so when he was arrested for it, and it's actually his sons that turned him in. If you wanted to, in my personal opinion, just my opinion, if you really want to know about what Bernie did and how the Ponzi scheme worked, et cetera, et cetera. Watch a documentary. This movie doesn't cover how the Ponzi scheme actually worked. It shows you a lot of the actions and transactions that they go through, and anxiety and fear and everything else related to the Ponzi scheme. But more importantly, it's about his relationship with his children, with his wife, with the people around him. I think, Bernie was probably a psychopath, which, most, wealthy people in his position are. But I think, to me, that's what this movie is truly about. It's about the family dynamics of a situation like that, where you can have a person, as well known as Bernie was, create one of the, perpetuate one of the largest crimes in U.S. financial system's history. That's all I got for you, Cade. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. I would agree with you that it is. I was going into this movie thinking that it was going to sort of be the definitive take on the Bernie Madoff story, and sort of kind of talk about it in that way. And I still think that perhaps I left the movie thinking that perhaps we still don't even have that movie yet. Like, I still think you could tell this in an interesting way, that which is sad, because I think these are great actors to do that. But I agree that it left it sort of being like, oh, I didn't even feel like it for a very long film. It's a long film. It's what, 2 hours or something, and 2 hours 11 minutes. I think something. It's a pretty long film for what it is, and still feeling like we didn't really scratch the surface, or we didn't even really talk about some of the more interesting parts that it should be. I was kind of shocked by how boring the film was.
Yeah, especially considering it didn't really go into detail about how the Ponzi scheme even worked.
And that's,
you saw him. He spent all that time with the strobe lighting and the drum sequence on trying to get cash in. Whenever the market started crashing, what happened was people were starting to pull their investment funds out, which meant he couldn't cover the scheme. Yes. He had no cash, so he was running around trying to get more cash. But you needed to understand how Ponzi schemes worked to understand why what was going on was as big a deal as it was. And I don't think that they really, this guy's on 17th floor. But, unless you really already knew what a Ponzi scheme was, you didn't really get what they were all driving to in the movie. That's why I said, I think it's the movie itself, to me, the more interest that what it was really about was it all came down to this one reporter asking this question: if something happened to you, if you got hit by a bus, your son would be left holding the bag, and he could not admit that. He really saw it. He never saw what it would do to his family.
Yes, and so it ended up being sort of a family drama, sort of, I guess, but that's such a difficult thing to walk with, they're kind of seemingly almost pushing aside the sort of ramifications. Like, it's talked about, and there are certain sequences where they show this is some of his damages, things that he's done, but like 5 minutes here, and then it's talked about at surface level. But then
it looked like they were going to start off that way. Yeah, I mean, it opened with it, and I thought, okay, so this is what this is going to be about, because it was a big deal at the time.
Yeah,
because the boys were like, we didn't know. His wife said they had no idea. This all came out in the news, but nobody believed them. And I thought, okay, this is going to be their story of what this man did to them. Yeah. And then it switched gears, and it went to, him being arrested in the trial and being interviewed by somebody. And I was like, yeah, it was as psychotic a movie as he was.
And it's interesting because it was the seemingly point was to sort of be like what it's dealing with is that they're trying to humanize even his family, and then sort of dealing with the fact of it's it's dealing with that. How do you humanize these people, and should they be humanized, and what in the fact that people are angry at them despite the fact that they say that they knew nothing about it, and but it just seems like a really odd angle when you could sort of talk about that, like they're choosing the angle to go about it. No one's forcing them to focus on these three people, and that was just an interesting sort of perspective to take of like, we're going to focus on them see what their perspectives were a little bit, even though they're really focusing on Bernie Madoff a lot of it too. But you never really get to the heart of why.
I think that's why it's such a long film, is that it was a little confused. What do you think?
I appreciated how much of the film was relatable. I mean, I remember as an 8-year-old child asking my grandpa how Wall Street worked, and then being absolutely berated and practically disowned. And I never talked about Wall Street again for the rest of my life.
That's a scene in the movie for our audience. One of his grandchildren asked them about how Wall Street worked, and then they were.
Or the last time you went to eat dinner with your dad, he made the waiter take the plate away and bring you lobster when you don't even like lobster. Yeah, but you gotta eat it anyway. Grown man.
Toss away the claws was an odd, like, you eat the meat out of the claws, don't you? You can eat the meat out of lobsters. Claws. That was a odd little. I don't know that sentence, but and open it up. Like, of course, most people are going to eat the tail, of course, but there's more to a lobster than. Did they throw away the claw meat? Is my question.
Evidently, wealthy people only eat the tail.
Yeah,
it's a wealth thing.
Maybe it is a wealth thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That frustrated me a little bit. There's good meat in those claws.
Only strange people take the meat out of the
claws. Get a couple of claws and baby, you got a stew going.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe all the workers get to sit around with the claws and eat the meat out of. Maybe they get the claw meat. What's left over. Anyways, we have Ava in the chat saying, agreed, boring. She said that the Madoff, Monster of Wall Street is a Netflix series of 4 episodes. She said it was a better version of that. And
if you really want to understand the Ponzi scheme, how it started, why he thought he could unravel it, he could stop it at any time, but he really couldn't. And
And I think Ava's making.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Ava also put on there that they can't know who these characters truly are. They're just portraying their idea and conjecture. That I mean, like that's an interesting sort of point too. Is that like they're creating a film, they're creating sort of this thing, and it's fascinating the sort of perspective that it takes, even if these people did say this and everything, to sort of be like, we're going to tackle the Bernie Madoff story, and these are the 4 people we're almost exclusively going to tell the story from, is a little odd. It is strange. And it's also, I mean, I think Diane's right in the sense of, I don't even know when this was sort of released in the middle. Is this released after Big Short? Or before? But it seems like in a post Big Short world, where we have a lot more of these financial films and stuff like that, more and more I think people are interested in learning the sort of specifics of finance and how these crimes are committed. And I think that was sorely missing, to Diane's credit, of what she was saying.
It was made after. It was made after The Big Short was 2015. Margin Call was 2011. Too Big to Fail, 2011. The Wolf of Wall Street was 2013.
Wow, yeah.
And
so it was well
2017.
So it's after all
they
that.
didn't. Yeah. Now the timing is not, but the timing was all the same time.
Yes. The making of the film.
I was kind of disappointed. They had an opportunity to really showcase what he did and how important what he did was, and how you could kind of spot it when somebody's doing it to you again.
Yeah. Because I mean, I would love a whole sequence where they
did anything.
Go ahead.
If the movie did anything wrong, it was just stick too close to its source material. I mean, like
Yeah.
with biopics, you always have the problem of kind of the cliche of truth is stranger than fiction. And at a certain point, like if you're just, throwing the truth up on the screen and presenting it as a story, like your audience can only follow along so long before they're just like, I can't even like believe this or deal with it, even if it's true.
Yes. Which there's something in the other one that kind of threw me out, and I guess was a real life thing, but I was like, oh, that seems odd. But I think there was certain things that's like you could tell this in if you're looking at other biopics, there's ways to sort of even tell this sort of story floor where they explain what they did and everything in detail, but in kind of like flashy fashion, like take that from almost like a Big Short or something. I think that would be a fascinating sort of way to go about it. I think expanding the ambient thing and sort of like that was sort of where it was a little bit like that's a fascinating sort of situation, and the decision making is sped through, and then they use that to do this whole hallucination sequence, and I'm like, well, okay, for one thing, that's shot oddly, but that's not a bad idea if it was kind of expanded and done a little differently. But that in the lead up to it, I think should have been a little bit better. And the sort of ramifications of that should have been explored.
Well,
it helps you understand. It helps you understand the character of Bernie Madoff to just be so blasé about. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to help you out doing this, suicide thing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just like treats the, next few days as whatever. That, and it also showcases the hopelessness of Michelle Pfeiffer's character and just how much trauma she endures throughout the course of the film it's astounding.
Yes. Well, let's talk about Michelle Pfeiffer's character. Very fascinating. Like that. I mean, I left the movie sort of being most fascinated by that character and that performance of that is a fascinating role. It's a role that, we start to see a little bit more often of someone who is the spouse or some sort of familial relation to someone who has done a horrible act, and sort of what does that mean whenever they are the sort of public thing. In fact, I think of like we need to talk about Kevin, completely different situation where Tilda Swinton's playing the mother of essentially a mass shooter, and sort of that whole thing, and then this one where it's like dealing with some sort of horrific thing that people believe that have more to do with the sort of event than you do, or at least that's the perspective of the film. And I think that's fascinating. I think that she plays it so fascinatingly of like she knows nothing else other than him and that relationship, and she doesn't know how to sort of let go of it, and it is a little bit like, oh, boo-hoo, she doesn't get her hair cut at this salon, but it is, I don't know, it's somewhat fascinating at the same time from that character's perspective to see. I thought, I don't know what you guys.
Because I don't think I think in this sense, first off, Bernie and his wife were born in 1928. So this is my mother's generation, and women didn't leave their husbands. They stayed with them through thick and thin, and that was kind of, I think we saw that with the Washington Post, movie, right? That the women are. I hate to say this, that they're some people would think they're not portrayed as being strong. But in reality, for what was expected of them, that's why so many of them were alcoholics and taking sleeping pills. But this was an accurate portrayal of the role that they played. Yeah, and I think in her case, it's like she said, this is all she's ever done was to be his wife.
Yeah,
and that was a full-time job for her to be his wife. And be part of that. So I could see where to me, she was totally believable. And I like the fact that they showed what she went through.
Yes.
By the way, how people treated her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only treating her as if she knew what was going on, but treating her badly because she benefited from their wealth.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that like they treated her like she was like a Lady Macbeth type character pulling the strings behind,
Exactly.
like how we view some of like these women, like is like, oh well, of course she was the bookkeeper at one point during their first year, way back when they started, and so therefore she's still the person pulling the strings behind the whole thing.
Pulling the strings, yes, just like
Diane.
Hillary did with Bill Clinton.
Diane. What? No, I knew exactly where you was going before you went there.
I was going to start with Kamala and Joe because that's a big deal. You wanted me to stop before I got too political. But I can run down a list of people that have nothing to do with politics if you want me to. Okay.
One of the interesting things about Bernie Madoff was that I believe that he founded or set up the NASDAQ stock exchange.
He was
to know that he had
the SEC.
Exactly. And apparently, like, just with all of that kind of internal industry power, the idea of the fox guarding the hen house really is on full display there. And just how condescending he is to the SEC characters was amazing to me. Look at him. He's wearing this jacket, this ugly jacket in my office. How dare he? Like, treating people who seem to take their jobs relatively seriously and even have seeming respect for Bernie Madoff. Like, it was fascinating just how, like, the depths of arrogance. It was amazing.
Well, and you notice they didn't check the account.
Yes.
Because he was Bernie Madoff, so they didn't check the account. Mm-hmm. So he was pretty right to, treat them like shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my own opinions. My own opinions are kind of bleeding through here because, my God, we can't,
Yeah, well, I think it was fascinating because, like, I mean, he played the sort of charming thing too. Like, even like in that, like, he would say that sort of behind their back, and then he would come in there, and then he would sort of like, pull it like, well, you know who I am, right? And like, and then do that. But then he also would be kind of playful, and then he would like, even within that scene, there was a lot of sort of things that he was sort of playing that from, and it was, I think that part was really well written and well acted. But I just sort of wish we got more of that. We don't get a lot of scenes of just him being Bernie Madoff in like the height of being Bernie Madoff either in this Madoff movie. It's like these are little flashbacks. These are all afterwards. What I'm saying, like we don't get a lot of it. Like there's
flashbacks.
Yeah, and so
I thought the beachfront party was perfect. It was that was a flashback scene. You're right, but it was like. This is how he charmed people.
Yes.
Everybody believed in Bernie. I mean, come on.
They were all, one of the weird things about that scene is the fact that the family all gets into a circle and dances together, like with arms around each other. And all of these party members are just watching this family like in a circle hopping up and down. And it was the most bizarre thing. And it's treated like this is a normal thing. To just sit around and just see this family just dance together while you all watch them. It was kind of an odd little thing. I think a film could have been better too. Personally, there was two ways to go about this. If they were going to do the film the way that they were doing it, focus it completely around Ruth's character. I think that is the way that you sort of tell that story, and you even deal with even more with the ramifications of like essentially have like a first act where it all goes, or like a 2-act structure where it all goes wrong, and then sort of the ramifications of like her going down to Florida and what that's like, and then like having to be completely isolated and everything, and then dealing with the deaths of her sons. Like that's a lot of very fascinating things that's just at the very end of this movie, and not really even told from her perspective. Like, you get part of it, but like it's told from Bernie's perspective, which is like, and he's giving you nothing because that's what the character is, and it's like, but that's not the interesting side of this. Michelle Pfeiffer finds out this news off camera. Like, that she runs off. She's off camera when she gets the phone call. Like, why wouldn't you put the camera in front of Michelle Pfeiffer when she learns that her child died? Like, what is that? Is who am I to tell Barry Levinson how to direct a film? But geez, I don't know. That's a simple.
Yeah,
simple
I think they just should have let the Bernie Madoff story be the documentary, and then do the movie from Ruth's perspective, the entire movie from her perspective would have been a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
you're right. And then but there was a couple of pieces of this film that drove me crazy. The strobe light thing they had going, I just had to close my eyes and not watch that.
When the reporter during the ambient thing, is that what you're talking about?
It must have been.
Yeah.
There were strobe lights.
Paparazzi down the hall.
The paparazzi. She imagines the paparazzi in his apartment, and it's all these flights. Yeah, I'm like, geez, this should have come with some sort of warning beforehand. This is kind of one of the worst I've seen. I don't get epilepsy, but geez, like I think a lot of people could get it from that. It was pretty intense.
Migraine, that one. Yeah, and then the drum sequence. I mean, I get that why they did that, because they needed to show, hey, he was starting to panic because he wasn't going to have any cash. But still, that whole drum sequence thing.
Yeah, it's trying to be, it's a little Birdman-ish. Yeah. But I did really like that. I think in concept, like in even, I don't know if that was, the drum thing was odd, but I did like him going around trying to, like, that was sort of the thing I imagined this movie was going to be more of, was the wheeling and dealings and him trying to, and then you're just, how this, and like that was an interesting sort of peek behind the curtain of who's this guy under sort of pressure. And the fact that, I mean, I thought that was fascinating.
The fact that it was only 5 minutes with the drum sequence is like ruins it, right? That's really, you should have been more of the movie. I agree. And I thought Hank Azario was really good in his sleazy role that he was in. Because he's the kind of guy that the only kind of guy you could get to actually do that kind of a scheme. And he was the one actually running it. Bernie was just the front man.
Yes.
That's a reality.
And all
the
that
show was great. Yeah. And then Robert De Niro's fake nose. There was a couple of close-ups there that, the whole face is expressive and moving, but the nose is not. And it's like, this is just, oh, please. And had a different texture than his cheek. I mean, it was really weird. I'm sorry. That threw me out of the movie twice.
I don't know, like, I'm probably not the person to sort of say this, but I guess I'll jump on it here. Shouldn't Bernie Madoff be played by like a Jewish actor? Like, I just feel like that's like, I mean, an odd sort of thing that like De Niro keeps playing these roles, like the Irishman and different things. That's not of his like he's physically very Italian, and that's and he's so known for those roles that whenever he steps into this, it seems odd. It just a note there. It seemed it threw me out a little bit. I do have a note here about his Bernie Madoff's pop art collection. In his office there. I love there was these pieces of Roy Lichtenstein, who's is probably my favorite artist. I love Roy Lichtenstein, his art pieces, and I'm like, oh, Bernie Madoff had a Roy Lichtenstein set there, and that threw me into a rabbit hole of looking this up, and apparently that was a huge deal at the time, and like those were like actual representations of his art pieces. Bernie Madoff did not own a lot of art, despite being this person in wealthy New York thing. And like that became a whole interesting thing of like when they were trying to auction off his his owner, about the things that he owned, and people were like, "Oh, now's time to get some art at a good price or whatever." And there were articles written about how atrociously there was very little, and the fact that there were all of these pop art pieces, and everyone wanted, I guess, other things. Even though I love pop art, people were saying he doesn't even have good art, and they were making fun of Roy Lichtenstein, and him like, "Oh, this was me very happy about it." But I guess he owned one Picasso, and it wasn't a good Picasso. It was a lot of interesting things. It put me in a whole rabbit hole that it was like fascinating. And those were actually one of his pieces, which was the 6 bull images that Roy Lichtenstein did. So just wanted to mention that.
Ava agrees with me. DeNiro's fake nose performance was an epic.
I didn't mind the nose and the but I he had to do the whole hair thing too and everything. I don't know. It's a TV. It's a TV
hair was
film.
Okay. It's a HBO. Come on.
Yeah. The
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is there anything else about this film? I mean, would you recommend it?
Okay. Well, Harrison, you want to go first? Sure, I guess. Would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
I would not recommend this movie. No, I'd rate it probably $1 bill on fire. But yeah, no, there's it's just the problem is the source material and the storytelling and the way it's done and the characters. Just like it's all miserable. Fantastic performances don't save an awful movie. It's something that I see again and again. So that was the issue with The Wizard of Lies.
Yes. Diane, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
I would not recommend this movie, and I would give it like a sleeping pill.
Okay.
I know I'm supposed to only do drinks, but I don't care. I need a sleeping pill.
We ended with the fact.
I do also like the bills that have the wings on them. Have you seen that? This
is Harrison's, by the way.
Yeah. The if you look, there is an emoji for dollar bills that have wings on them. Have you seen it?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
I want to give you the pill emoji, though, because you do have, we did, as of last season, you inherited food as well. So you have food and drink.
Oh.
And one of the primary food groups is pills, right?
Certainly isn't my house. Ava's, what's she doing down there? It's so tiny I can't see it. A lobster.
Let's see here. I'm trying to give you a pill, Diane, and it's not letting me give you a pill.
Well, that's okay.
I
just don't know how two people can take a bowl full of sleeping pills and it not kill one of them. I mean, it should have killed somebody, right? It was a bowl full of sleeping pills. Oh, there we go. There's my pill. I've never taken a sleeping pill, but I would think if you took a bowl full of them, that it would kill you.
I like Ava. She gave it a lobster. Yes, you're right. That's a good one. No, I wouldn't recommend the film, which is sad. I thought it would be kind of an interesting sort of exploration in some sort of way, and I was just disappointed in it. I think it's was one of the things that it should have been more. I was
hoping for more of The Big Short kind of thing, that.
Yeah, or margin call. We've seen a lot of these really good financial. Yes, and so it's, but don't know anyone this. Yeah, so it's a very it should have been more. The only other note I had is, there's a reason that reporters aren't actors, and I don't think that lady should have been playing herself in the movie against Robert De Niro until the very end. She was
playing herself?
Yes.
Oh my God, that explains everything.
and I'm like, the last scene she did a pretty good job, but that whole opening, it was like nails on a chalkboard of just being like, geez, just can we not hire just somebody? Like, I don't like. Oh well. Yeah. It's fine. I mean, But anyways, yes. So that's The Wizard of Lies from 2017, our first film. That's a round the house not recommend, which is rare in Double Feature Movie Club thing. It's weird because I don't like hate the film, but I don't love it, and I can't
believe I'm saying I'm not recommending a film that's Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer in it.
Yeah.
That's what?
Barry Levinson. I mean, great. I mean, one of the great directors, and it's a HBO film. Like, they do a lot of really good biopics. And it's about finance, and it's odd thing of like it. Maybe it was too high of hopes of what this was, but still, like it was just long and boring, and which is perhaps the worst thing you could be. If you're gonna, it really is. We've seen a lot of movies that are shorter than this and worse, but I would probably sit through them again than this. Great. Well, that's our first thing. Now we're going to move into our second feature, which I will explain the plot of, and it's the 2014 film Big Eyes, directed by Tim Burton.
I love how.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
Oh, I got me some popcorn from the concession stand. Oh, sorry. Hopefully you got something too. Great. Our film that we're discussing now is feature number 2 is Big Eyes, directed by Tim Burton from 2014. It stars Amy Adams and Christoph Waltz. Let me see here for a second. There we go. The stars Amy Adams and Christoph Waltz. It is about a really interesting story that I didn't know too much about. It was the Keanes, Walter Keane, played by Christoph Waltz, and Margaret Keane. Margaret Ulbrich was her original name. It's Amy Adams. She leaves her husband and walks off with her child, and they move to San Francisco, and there she meets Christoph Waltz's character, Walter Keane, who is this supposed he's a artist, a painter, who paints these landscapes of his time in Europe, and they fall in love, and then her husband contacts them and says, hey, I'm gonna fight for control of the custody of my child. So they quickly get married, Christoph Waltz and Amy Adams, and in order to keep the child. And she very famously, Amy Adams, paints these characters with big eyes. She wants to be an artist, and her sort of style is these characters with big eyes. But through a whole series of things, Christoph Waltz claims that he is the person who makes these art pieces. They become internationally known and very famous, and he claims that he's wrote them, and it's sort of about their marriage and the fallout of this lie that they are doing on a national scale. That is Big Eyes. I don't like doing that story. I don't like doing my. It's hard to do the plot synopsis, Diane.
It's really hard. I don't even try.
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially when you try to open up with a joke and realize that no one's laughing. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Well, because we're on mute. We can't even.
Yeah. I guess I could have given myself a crowd laughing, and then that would have boosted my self-confidence a little bit.
Right there,
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
there's no time like the present.
You're right. Here we go.
I had some of these little pictures in my room as a kid. Oh wow!
Well, they cheered for you, Diane, in the pictures that were in your room.
Yeah,
but not for my joke.
Actually, I actually put up and showed my mom some of these today. I said, "Do you remember these?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I remember. Those were really popular."
I had no idea these existed, but then when I saw them, I'm like, "Oh, I think I've seen these around different things." Yeah, like so. I think I've seen these, but yeah, they're fascinating. They're kind of odd and weird, and they're kind of kitschy. They're like but they have a whole fit about. But yeah, it's got a great cast, great supporting cast too. Terrence Stamps is in this as a critic. Danny Houston's in this as a reporter. So it's got an interesting little cast there. So yeah, okay. Well, anyways, I guess we'll jump in. Harrison, what'd you think about Big Eyes?
It threw me for a loop, but then it just got into its groove more and more as the movie went on. So honestly, the Tim Burton qualities that I'm not always on board with fit this movie great. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought. How fascinating two characters that get so much of what they think they want, this fame and fortune, and looking like they're miserable throughout the situation. It's fascinating. Amy Adams, Amy Adams' character, grows leaps and bounds throughout the movie, but it's never steady progress. It's always this really jarring, dramatic move from one situation to the next, which is great to watch in a movie.
Yeah. Diane, what did you think about this movie?
I thought I went back and I had to say, okay, tell me what parts of this were real, because the whole payoff at the end.
I bet the grocery store where she saw all those people with big eyes, I bet that was real.
Yeah, that was where I had my it's Tim Burton.
An hour into the film.
Yeah, he came through for us. I knew he would do that. Yeah, I had some notes on this one, but very first thing, grocery store people. Tim Burton. Yeah, I thought it dragged a little bit. Overall, but I love the production of these movies in the early 60s. You have me whenever you get the late 50s, early 60s movies, when Man from U.N.C.L.E., I'm sure you've seen it. I love these movies.
Their house that they get whenever they strike with that water, and the fact when the water sort of and it's all open and it's
I just love the production of those types of movies. And you always get me on those. So I love that portion, that part of it. Mm-hmm. I thought her character to me was real, from the perspective that, like you just said, Harrison, that she leaps and bounds, that it jarringly changed, that she's reacted. She put up with this stuff from him for 10 years. And that is probably pretty true for a 50s housewife. Early 60s housewife, that she would do that. I mean, that's not, that unusual. My favorite line in the movie was, "The more you lie, the smaller you get." I love that. I love it.
Because it's sort of her coming to the realization that there's even more that she doesn't know about too. Then that was sort of an interesting sort of thing. I was like, oh, okay. And I mean,
we never painted any of those landscapes.
Yes. And so the idea that you think it's a great sort of dramatic thing of where you're in on it, in the characters. I mean, it's that sort of tension that comes from you think all of the sort of lie that's going on, and then there's even more that so it's kind of put you in Amy Adams' shoes, like where like they could have at any point, like you makes it thinks like you're sort of with them both through this lie, and then that firmly makes you, even though you're not on his side because of how awful he is, but that even is more squarely is like you felt betrayed because you felt like you were in on the thing up till that point too,
because we were seeing what we wanted to see just like she did.
Yes,
sure.
We saw what she wanted to see. Like she said, I know I've seen you paint.
Yeah,
but she hadn't, and I'm sure I sat there and went, we did see him paint. Did we see him paint? I guess
yeah.
There were some really subtle, beautiful payoffs, especially in that moment where it's S. Scenic and not Walter Keane. Once you see that kind of scraped off, you immediately jump back to the scene where they open the Keane gallery, and he just talks about, oh, my ideas. Oh, and then I put the oils down. And the guy next to him just goes, but isn't that acrylic? Yeah. Just, your very basic questions.
Like he doesn't even know art. Yes.
Right.
Art at all. Yeah.
Or
just the fact that they were when they were sitting there on the waterfront painting, and the fact that they were sitting there and he was like hadn't painted anything, and he's like, I'm waiting for inspiration to catch me, because like she asked, why is your paint, you're the child who sees all this sort of stuff, why is your canvas blank? And he's like, I'm waiting for inspiration to come. She's like, stop bothering him. He's an artist. He has to be inspired, but
I do like the way that Tim Burton used the other characters in this movie to be truth-sayers. Like the guy who ran the gallery when he brought the paintings, and he said, he had the landscapes that were his, and the big eyes that were his wife's. That guy, he told that guy those were his wife's paintings.
Yes.
And yet, so that guy becomes one of the truth-sayers of the movie, and same thing with the kid. And her friend. I mean, there were people around them all the time.
Yeah.
My second Tim Burton moment was with the fork to the eye. I mean,
he lunges at Terrence Stamp.
Yeah.
It's a callback to a very famous movie, and you see it in a lot of different films. The Lobster did it pretty famously, and then I forget the originating movie where. Oh yeah, it was the one that Salvador Dali made. Anyways, that kind of really sharp object next to the eye, like thrilling, titillating, but it's in so many movies.
Yes.
Where was I going to go with this? I have no clue where I was going with this. But anyways,
there was some movie.
Christoph Waltz.
There was a knife to the eye, and like there was I can't remember what it was, but there was some sort of thing of like they had to have a contraption in order to do that, of like you were almost pulling against it in order to not make it go into the like it was like a whole thing, like it was
even worse.
Yeah, but that was how the shot had to be composed. It was and like it was actually somewhat dangerous or whatever, but it was but that was in order to not make it. Yeah, so I don't remember what that was though. I'm also kind of at loss, but yeah, go ahead. I don't know if you was gonna say.
Yeah, the other thing was the Perry Mason. I loved how Tim Burton gave us Perry Mason, midway through the movie, and then used him again at the end.
Yeah,
we kind of had a first full circle Perry Mason moment,
and that was
you just
one
don't get that in many movies.
Yeah, because you just think, he's just watching Perry, you think nothing of it, but and then
now he thinks he's a lawyer. Yeah.
And that was the part to me that was the I guess I'll say I really liked this movie a lot. I thought this was a really excellent movie. I think at several points I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. I thought the aesthetic was really cool, and I thought the story was very, very, very interesting. From like a real life, like, this is crazy that it took this long to make this story. It's a brilliant, brilliant story of what happened here, and you get to sort of see.
Well, they've been trying to make it for a decade.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Oh, they've had a lot of different actors, attached to it, and over the years, et cetera, et cetera. He died in 2000, and he until he died said he was the actual painter. And of course, at the end in the courtroom, where they have the paint off. I love that, the paint off. That really happened.
Yes. And
he really said, "Oh, my shoulder's out. I can't paint today."
And I feel like I remember that being talked about. Yeah. People saying that, like, that's a very famous sort of court thing, I think. Where people talk about that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the performances and everything. I was really digging it. I think the courtroom scene, though, in particular, even if it was sort of based on, it seemed so particularly wacky of like a third act thing that like it did take me out of it in a way that nothing else. I was really vibing with the whole.
I had to look and say, did this really happen? And it did. It really, truly happened.
But it didn't have to be.
That it really happened.
It was yes, but like the film should have mirrored it. Like if this was their sort of thing, like it was so wackily played up and everything. Like and the fact that like him running back and forth, like where he was like asking questions to himself and like it just seemed that to me seemed. Something needed to either be played up on the first part, which I really loved the first part of it. So I don't know if I would have changed it too much. Either like played up comedic things for it to sort of end in a little bit more of a comedic thing, or that needed to be softened a little bit because I
don't know. See, that's what I saw as his arc. He got progressively more and more out there. His character did. From the time where she first meets him to that scene, he got progressively more and more. What's the word I'm looking for, Harrison? Wordman. Out there.
Deranged and unhinged.
There you go. Deranged and unhinged.
But he always had that a little bit.
But not to that level.
When he fought people.
He just got more and more. Yeah. He just got worse and worse and worse.
Well, and people start turning against him. He's backed into a corner, essentially. He feels like he's backed into a corner. And so I think by the end...
He thought those lawyers were going to stick around for him.
Yeah.
He kind of got caught off guard with that one.
But he's, played up, like, he's sort of a scary threat, and then by the end of it, he's played as a buffoon, like that's sort of the sort of thing there. And I don't know. It was such a hard pivot specifically now we're in this courtroom scene. We haven't seen him for a bit, and now he's almost like a slapstick caricature, which I thought was a little odd. It could have been slightly toned. I still love the film and still thought it was really good, and that could have been inspired by a lot of real life things, but it was a little jarring. And that to me was, I don't know, that was my only sort of critique, because I thought the rest of it I really, really, really liked.
I did too. I loved Amy Adams in it. I'm glad she won a Golden Globe.
She was so good in this.
She was hesitant about playing the role until she did American Hustle. And then she saw, okay, now that I've done these women in this period, I understand her better, so. So yeah, I'm glad she won for that. So the only thing that threw me out on this movie was Lana Del Rey.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I wrote a note about that too.
This was the second full circle moment of the movie. And this was a Cade full circle moment with Lana Del Rey.
Diane, you didn't have to bring that up. Okay. That's fine. No, you're right.
Okay.
My most popular.
You should tell that story.
I guess I did. I guess was that during our break? I think it might have been during our break that happened.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. In the meantime,
I don't even think Harrison knows about this.
So backstory to this. Lana Del Rey dated Styx Larsson, the guy who was what was he? Some sort of like a person. He worked for the TPD, Tulsa Police Department, and he was like a public-facing representative of them on Live PD. I guess he hung around.
Yeah, he had his 15 minutes of reality TV fame.
Yes,
that's right.
And so I guess they met, and they had a relationship for a few years and everything, and then she's sort of become some. Right-leaning, I think you could say, in some sort of respects. She very famously wore. She had a book signing in the middle of the pandemic, and it was masks were required, and she wore one that was like sequined with a bunch of holes. It was just all like a little design thing, which later Glass Onion, Ryan Johnson made fun of with Kate Hudson's character. She wore
Kate Hudson's character with her. Yeah.
Which was Lana Del Rey's. Yeah. And so anyway, so at the point that they broke up, and since then and everything, and she put publicly when she released her last album, I don't know, a month or two ago, she put one billboard out in America, and it was here in Tulsa. And I did a what? Diane, are you okay?
I had to mute because I was going to laugh and cough at the same time.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, so they did a billboard in here in Tulsa, and I did a video, or a little TikTok. I'm like, well, it's right here. It's literally like 2 blocks away from where we work. And on our lunch break, I went and did a video of it, and just did a thing. It's like, and it was stupid. It's the stupidest thing I've ever made, and it got lots of views on my TikTok, and it's my most watched thing.
Yes, it's hilarious. You should see it.
It's not hilarious. It's embarrassing. It's just that TikTok voice where it's like, Lana only has one billboard and it's here in Tulsa or whatever. And it's stupid. It's stupid, but it got the views and it got me some followers.
It's pretty hilarious.
Yep. So that's my Lana Del Rey story. Diane, did we miss your Bernie Madoff story on the last?
It's really kind of boring. You know?
Okay, go ahead. We teased it, so we had to.
I mean, yeah, I guess we did tease it, didn't we?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to show.
Don't show it. I'm going to cut your screen if you do that.
5,000 likes so far. Oh my gosh.
So you
That's amazing. But anyway,
it's not so amazing.
Yes, Bernie Madoff. It was pretty funny. They kind of referenced this guy in the movie. I can't remember his name now. It's like gone from my head. But he was the guy who was assigned to find the money, to get as much money back as he could.
Yes.
To redistribute.
Oh,
And
what was his name? Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
He made like $1.5 billion himself, going and getting all this money back. I mean, think about that for a second. You know, who got ripped off? Anyway, a lot of the places he went to get the money back were to people who still had some left. They didn't lose everything, right? They only lost some of it or part of it or whatever. And he went and took money from them to give to people who had lost everything. It was kind of a shystery kind of deal, but he made a ton of money doing it. Anyway, he came to the financial institution that I work for, which was mentioned, by the way, in the movie, and wanted us to tell him on Bernie's accounts that we had at the bank, which were holding company accounts, every deposit that was ever made into them, to try to track whose money it was, where it actually originated from, which it had been washed so much by the time it made it into our bank. There's no way you could back into it. You know, it had already been out of the country and back and all this stuff. Yeah. So you used the Caymans a lot. But anyway, yeah, it was a big 3-day weekend, work all weekend, trying to figure out how to give this guy this kind of information that we just couldn't do.
Well, that is a fascinating story. And how does it relate to Big Eyes?
It has nothing to do with Big Eyes at all. Other than I had some of those pictures in my room my mom bought for my room when I was a little girl.
And that brings up a really good point. I don't know how accurate it is, but it would make sense time-wise. It was certainly in that time that this became a thing. They sort of credit them for essentially making the print, like prints of art, like
prints of art. Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was. They kind of give it.
Him.
They make it Christoph or Walter Keane's idea to ever print a piece of artwork, which I mean,
he could sell more posters. Than
he I mean, if that's true, that's insane. That he did that.
It probably was true.
Yeah. It probably. I mean, that it was that time period and everything. And of course, Warhol did that. And a lot of people sort of did that later. But he
said Warhol got the idea from him.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, it seems like he paved the way for, or he was a businessman essentially. He's a guy, and he was a sort of charismatic front man for this whole thing. And there is something to say about like it's sort of the whatever the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak idea of like you have a person that's a brains or whatever, or the talent, and someone who's the person who sells and pitches and does all that and is the showman. And it does sort of take both sides of that. In a lot of respects. But it seems like he paved the way for a lot of these artists who are, that would come around later and be this, who were essentially these kitschy, essentially they would sell prints of things, that's what they would sort of be known for later. Your Norman Rockwells and your Thomas Kincaids, these people that it's sort of art for the lower class in a lot of respects, because of how accessible they make their art. And that's sort of seemingly, he was the leader of that. It's fascinating. And sort of the idea of like, and you have people pressing up against that in the art world of like with Terrence Stamp's character, who's like, this isn't art. And I wish I would have maybe explored that a little bit more, because it was probably had to do with how commercialized he was. Or he made them.
The nice kind of effects of media coverage on like the Keane success was really, really wonderful there. Just as soon as he goes on television, everybody who didn't have the money to buy his art wanted to be there. And from there comes the prints. But him dealing with the New York Times, and the New York Times art critic who just kind of saw right through him, and really just dealing with Keane lashing out in such a polished and like in command manner. That was impressive. It was a heck of a performance. Who was the actor?
For Christoph Waltz for Walter?
The art critic.
Oh, Terrence Stamp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just turned in a great performance.
And I love Terrence Stamp in everything that he does. I think Terrence Stamp is, I've seen him in tons of bad movies too, and he's like someone who stands out and brings gravitas to everything, and I love Terrence Stamp, and so I thought that was really good role, and like you needed someone who could bring presence to this character who's essentially only in it for like maybe 4 scenes, if that. Like he's barely in the film, but he leaves such a lasting impact to the story. And I thought that was good. Diane, you have anything else to say about this?
No, other than I would recommend it for sure. Yeah. I know Ava had already seen it, so she didn't watch it. Okay. Because she had already seen it, and she had told me she really enjoyed it when she did, so I'm glad that I got the recommendation from her to watch it, not just you.
I thought it was really, really good. The
all of the acting, the kid, the 2 little girls that played her daughter, they did a great job, and everything about it. I love the Hawaiian scenes.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's just so much of that time period and the kitschiness and all that.
There was one bit of trivia that I did see. And you remember the scene where they're both painting in the park, and he's not painting, but she is. Behind her is a lady sitting on a bench.
Oh, is that her?
You remember that? Yeah, that was actually Margaret Keane that was sitting there.
And is that where like the photo comes later of where they were? Because they were at a bench, So that would make sense that they.
Yeah. I took the photo at the end.
So the writers of this, which I realized. These might be one of my favorite screenwriters, because there's 2 writers. They're a duo, and they write films together. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but there's some really, really good ones that I really like. So they wrote, they got their start they wrote Problem Child and Problem Child 2. But that's where their start came from.
My gosh.
But then they wrote Ed Wood. They wrote The People versus Larry Flint, which I love The People versus Larry Flint. It's one of my favorite. And Man on the Moon, They wrote that, the movie about Andy Kaufman.
Wonderful movie.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful movie. Yeah.
And then they wrote Agent Cody Banks. So that's one from my childhood.
Gosh.
And then they most recently wrote, which I love this film, Dolomite Is My Name, which was Eddie Murphy played. What's that guy's name? He was Dolomite. Dolomite is the character that he famously played in the movie Dolomite. That's such a good movie. If you haven't seen that one, it's a Netflix film, and that Wesley Snipes is in that, and he's amazing. It's great. It's essentially this guy who late in life decides to be a comedian and then wants to finance his own film, and it's this blaxploitation film, and it's real life characters. Like, all these are mostly real life characters outside of Problem Child and Agent Cody Banks, but like they do a good job of making these biopics, I think telling them in interesting sort of ways.
Too bad he didn't do the Bernie Madoff one.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah.
A lot more interesting.
But what they do is they take a lot of these interesting, in a lot of cases, outlandish. I would say that I guess he would be Walter Keane would sort of be the outlandish one. Like they can take like these outlandish public personas and sort of tell an interesting story around that. But I thought they did a really good job with Amy Adams' character too, of someone who's very reserved and like telling that in a very like fascinating way that, doesn't seem like they really write that from a protagonist standpoint a lot, but they thought they did an excellent job in this of showing her perspective of someone who, this whole thing was sort of pushed upon her, and she was just someone who, wanted her child to be safe, but also, wanted to be an artist, and was so close to fame, but yet so far away. And her being like her husband, who she did love, was so, got to sort of live the life that she somewhat wanted, and that she had to like essentially be up in this attic at all times, hidden away in her own home, making this art so no one else could know. Like she had to lie to her daughter about this so no one else would know. And she was in these stuffy rooms with these fumes, making all this art.
Somebody actually lived that life.
Yeah.
And there was a woman that actually lived it.
Yeah.
Lived that life. And there's probably more than one out there, but this is the one the movie was about.
Yeah. And he was just essentially out there being like sitting around doing nothing, but then he would go out there and be this public persona of this. And then I found it very fascinating when she was making her own artwork, and that like that sort of dichotomy that they're in that art gallery and this far little corner's hers, and he's around there, trying to sell his artwork. But it's not his, it's hers, but like the different style.
Let her talk to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you trying to do long division? Which is horrible. It's mocking.
In his head should be the price.
Yeah. It's that sort of thing of like someone like, there obviously are those people that are very so entirely charismatic, but are just like awful.
A psychopath.
Yeah. To these
just
people
another Bernie Madoff.
Yeah. And
I've been watching Mindhunter, and Anna's character talks about how CEOs of companies, Fortune 500 companies, they're all psychopaths. So yeah, I'm seeing that now in a lot of characters.
Yes. And I didn't even mention the whole tie-in here, as these were real life biopics about lies and fraud, and I think that was the tie-in well into our podcast.
A very good tie-in. Major theme is people being miserable throughout parties. There was not a single party where like everybody was actually vibing or seemingly happy to be there. Yeah. It was just like around people. And then Amy Adams' character, it seems completely like a fish out of water. Absolute introvert. But I do want to the supporting actors and Big Eyes really were on another level. Like Jason Schwartzman brought used car salesman energy to an art gallery. Yeah, I loved it. It was great. The club owner was superb. just whenever he grabs Keane and pulls him into the kitchen and says, "We're a hit, baby, because we hate each other," and then they just like run out like yelling and stuff. So yeah,
and that was sort of set up because of he was uninterested in like supporting his art on the wall. He's like, but right. I'll rent the space for it. And he's like, oh, well, okay. And that sort of, but that was fast of that idea, which of course plays into almost like Man on the Moon. Like that's another one where they sort of talk about, this sort of public facing persona versus like, so like, I thought that was really, very fun of like, he's like, and we're going to play this up cause it's a hit,
oh yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay. So yes. So Diane, you would recommend this movie. So you'd recommend this movie. And what were you?
Champagne, baby.
Champagne.
2 clinking glasses of champagne. Because in the end, she won.
She did. Elaborate on that, Diane, as I find your emoji.
I love that. I love that. Finally, a woman makes it out in the end. She actually beat him, and I think she got several $1 million, but he died penniless, and they made a movie about her. So yes, I love that. I love that she won.
Yes,
she passed away last June. By the way, June of 2022.
Long life, really long life,
she did.
And I'm glad that she lived, to see sort of her vindication there, and that that people, I mean, essentially you look him up and it says he's an American plagiarist is what his Wikipedia page says.
Yeah. And they had the pictures of him like sitting there at the in front of one of her paintings with the paintbrush and all that stuff. But yeah, he died penniless and a fraud.
Yeah. I mean, she never really probably gained, because I said she didn't end up winning the law. Like she won the lawsuit, but then like I was looking up later, like they took back the sort of $4 million that they were gonna they end up. So I mean, she probably didn't get a lot from her all the stuff that she made, but she at least got, I guess, the credit in public eye.
Yeah,
of those.
And Tim Burton has a lot of her paintings. He's a big fan.
Oh, really? Makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of do wish there was a little bit more of the flashes of Burton. I thought that they worked in this. I love.
No. I kind of love they didn't like go too crazy with the Burton thing.
I love that grocery store sequence though.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I was so worried after the grocery store sequence. We're gonna get more Tim Burton now, aren't we? He's been unleashed. But if they did it, they edited it out. So.
Tim Burton's made
a better place to put surrealism in the Tim Burton sense in a 1950s, 1960s biopic than a grocery store. Just like the most kind of boring, bland, Pleasantville sort of place. Like it was a really nice just touch. So well done.
He's made 3 movies with the word "big" in the title. What's the other 2? Trivia people.
The Big Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I was like,
Diane, one of them. You don't talk about this one all the time. Big Fish.
Big Fish.
Big Fish. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Those are the other 2.
There is a reason I have this blocked from my mind. Okay.
Harrison.
I haven't seen Big Fish in a long time.
I thought you liked Big Fish, Diane.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Harrison, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
I would recommend it. I'd rate it 4 eyes.
4 eyes. Okay, great. The let's see here. Yes. So I also like we've said before, I like this movie. I would highly recommend it. I really, really, really enjoyed this film. I thought it was really incredibly well acted and incredibly well directed. I thought it showed some restraint on his part, on Tim Burton's part. But I love the settings. I think this is Tim Burton, when he does this sort of thing, biopics in particular, he does seemingly a really good job. Ed Wood and a lot of other. I wish he did more things like this. When it came out, I didn't see it, and but I heard a lot of really good things, and it was in the middle of a lot of slump of Tim Burton. Like he does a lot of these CGI nightmare, just awful looking things, and not in a good way. Like he used to do good nightmares, but now it's just these bland sort of things. And so it reminds me that he still has it, and he still can do these sort of things. I like I said, I really enjoyed it. I have got to give it. Let's see here. Oh, my thing's in the way here. I have to give it a big eye. I have to give it a big eye. There's the big eye.
Oh, there you go. Because Harrison's kind of looked like, flying saucers. Oh, are those the UFOs? Oh, that's a big eye right there. I don't ever think I've ever seen an eye that color either. Yellow.
It's a big eye.
Yeah, it's a big eye.
Would you consider it a big eye, Harrison?
I mean, I've seen bigger.
Well, great. That is the gotta get above the eye here. It's the other hand. Okay, so we're gonna head into preview time now. We're going to preview our future next week's films. See you on the other side of this.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Okay, let's take it. What's coming your way, Diane? We're back, Diane. We're back for a full season. Oh, I think I have you. Do you have you're muted, Diane?
Mute me. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yes,
we're back for a full season.
Back.
We're back. We have a whole season ahead of us here on Double Feature Movie Club. It's exciting. It's very exciting. We have the whole list is extraordinary. I think, having not seen these films before. Hopefully, we lean more Big Eye than we do Wizard of Lies. I thought, yeah. Anyways, we've talked about what we thought about these films. So next week, and then we're also going to tease what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to let's tell them before we tell our things. What are we doing tomorrow, guys? The three of us.
Tomorrow we are going to a championship trivia match.
Yes, we are.
We did it. We were invited.
We were invited.
To the annual, trivia championship game.
Yes, so that's a good, people know what we've been doing during the break. We've been crushing it at trivia.
We have been crushing it.
We're not going to win it, so sorry to spoil it. But the thing is that we were invited.
I don't know. These teams that, well, let me rephrase this.
Okay, go ahead.
We're limited, right, to 6 players.
We are.
But all the other teams are too.
Yes.
The problem is that their 6 players will be the people who were on Jeopardy for 2 straight weeks. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to get killed.
Which those exist out there, yeah.
We have Harrison, who is our secret weapon.
Your secret weapon, Harrison.
Yay.
Secret weapon, Harrison. Jennifer will be there. Gus will be there. I mean, we got a pretty fair. I'm actually the weakest player because I don't know everything that occurred before you guys were born.
Mm-hmm. That is your wheelhouse, though. That's what we
supposed to be.
All the rest of them are just normal public weapons, but Harrison's our secret one.
He's the secret one.
Shh! Don't tell anybody.
I won't. He's the word man.
You'll find out what a secret weapon can do if you tell anyone.
Yeah.
And Ava said, but no pressure, Harrison.
No, none whatsoever.
Harrison thrives on pressure.
So that's why we're not going to be here tomorrow. But from then on, we're going to be back on our Sunday schedule. Sundays here at 6 p.m. So next week, we are watching. Next week is Kristen Stewart night here on Double Feature.
I'm so glad that we're getting Kristen Stewart out of the way early. Because if I had to look forward to that for like 6 or 7 weeks, I don't know if I could survive it.
You did recommend Personal Shopper. That was one of the ones that you sent me.
I did. I'm going to have to do Kristen,
Yeah, Kristen Stewart, which same director, both of them. So it's Kristen Stewart night. It's also that director who I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But so look it up. But Kristen Stewart. So we're doing Personal Shopper from 2016, and then 2014's Clouds of Sils Maria, which is the one that she received a nomination. Fun fact about Kristen Stewart, say whatever you want about her. She is the first American to ever receive a nomination for a French Oscar, or their French equivalent for Oscars. And she got it for her role in The Clouds of Sils Maria. So we will see that. We will watch that film.
We will watch both of these films.
We will watch
on Tubi.
Are they both on Tubi?
They're both on Tubi and Pluto and all the other free services. So
we have to talk about Tubi. Sorry, that buries the lead a little bit of that fact that we have been champions of Tubi here on Double Feature Movie.
We have been sending so many people to Tubi.
And they have been launched in this stratosphere from the Super Bowl that happened. Everyone's talking about Tubi, about their commercial, in which made a lot of people angry. And there's been Reddit posts about it's ended relationships.
Really?
Caused problems between families. And it's been a whole thing. There was this one post that was about this lady. She's like,
sitting on the remote.
Yeah, that her boyfriend got so upset with her about, like, she's screaming at her for changing the channel during the big game, and the fact that didn't happen. She's like, you got way too upset with me, and you wouldn't believe me whenever I said I didn't do it, and she left him. Yeah, which good for her.
She should.
Yeah,
she should.
Yeah,
get away from that guy.
Yeah,
he's not good for you.
Yeah. So that's a lot of people had things.
I know Tubi should be like one of our sponsors.
I think so. I think we have Summer Moon and Tubi. And
I downloaded the app on more of my friends' TVs than I could think.
They've got a good collection, and they've been ramping it up. Like that's been a whole thing. They have bought the rights to a few of these shows. So like Netflix is dumping a few things, and there's been a lot of these things of like their HBO is of course dumping a few of these things. They're off our streaming service, and Tubi's picking up a lot of these former shows. They're of course putting ads in between because that's their whole model system, and putting it out for free. And so a lot of these shows that are being dumped by these big companies. They're being picked up by, they're not being new seasons, but the old series are now on Tubi for free. So love Tubi, and I love that.
You don't even have to create an account.
You don't have to create, isn't that beautiful?
I love that. Of course, she doesn't keep track of what you've already seen.
Yes.
But I mean, come on, who cares?
Yes, and it doesn't keep, like, if you like leave or something, you can't pick up from where you left off or whatever. So like that's the good point of where they're selling the signing up, but you don't have to. It's all free there. It's a beautiful system. So I'm glad you brought up Tubi. I'm glad they're both on Tubi.
Both.
Excellent.
We're on Tubi. Yes.
And also excellent. Other thing I talk about Tubi a lot with that they love is they have a gateway for a lot of independent films. A lot of independent films are out on Tubi. So that's brilliant. They get to be mixed in.
The smaller documentaries. I've watched a couple of really good documentaries on Tubi, and that I heard about through somebody being interviewed on some show, and realized it's the only place it's available. So that's kind of cool too.
Well, it's a path, and then if you go through like a film hub or something,
cookie cutters could be on there.
It could be, yeah, it really could be, and you could collect ad revenue through like a film hub or something through Tubi.
Or Laura, which has won, a film festival. So yeah,
that's true. I mean, you can put it as a story.
Cookie Cutters. I mean, we've got a film festival coming up.
We do.
Where Cookie Cutters, the documentary, will be at the film festival. I think Harrison and Faith should come and go
come
with
up
us
to Miami,
Oklahoma.
Yes, coming up in
not a bad idea
in March. Yes, Cookie Cutters, a sweet tradition. It'll be.
It's a Friday night.
It's a Friday night.
Right?
Afterwards, there's going to be a ghost tour of that historic theater. I'm excited to see the theater. I've always wanted to go inside the Coleman.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I've never been, and I've always wanted to see the Coleman,
which
in and of itself is a great story.
Yes.
You know, of the mine. A lot of people don't really realize that the mining industry was huge here in northeastern Oklahoma for at turn of the decade, and one of the wealthy miners' wife wanted to be able to have vaudeville shows in Miami, so they built a vaudeville theater there.
And it's fascinating. It's like one of the only, like, the oldest theaters that still exists, and it's like very ornate. It's very beautiful, and it's all very, like, a lot of the original pieces are still there. So it's from pictures, it's very, very beautiful. But it's exciting to be there, and it's nominated for best documentary. So that's cool. And something else that I don't remember. That's some other thing. But it's exciting. And so yeah, if you haven't checked that out, it's on my YouTube channel too. So you can check out that there. Follow us on our new social media channels. Double Feature MC on Instagram and Twitter. A lot of fun is had there. Yeah, next week we're watching Personal Shopper and Clouds of Sils Maria. They're free on Tubi, so check those out. Diane, you have anything to plug? You want to plug, Diane?
Just click all the buttons.
Click all the buttons. Yes, rate us 5 stars. We're back.
Exactly.
We're back weekly. You can watch our live streams on youtube.com/Cade Thomas, 6 p.m. on Sundays, and then next day is a podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, please rate us 5 stars, subscribe, and everything. Harrison, you have a fun time here, and do you have anything to plug?
I have absolutely nothing to plug. It is a wonderful life.
I know.
I can just say, go watch Laura. Go look up Cookie Cutters. They're good films, and I wholeheartedly endorse them.
Oh, wholeheartedly.
There you go. Wholehearted. See, I didn't wholehearted.
She's a little bit on the fence, or at least
I will tell you though that I am making chocolate chip cookies now. I've already made the brownies.
Oh, exciting!
We'll be ready tomorrow. We'll be feeding the brain lots of sugars so we won't forget where human is.
I was right about that, by the way. Just want that on the
I know, that's why I brought it up.
Well, I brought it up too.
Harrison will be back in this season, later in the season. So Harrison, love having Harrison on. It's great to have Harrison on for as a regular. You're a regular around these parts, Harrison.
Harrison is the word man.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's our show. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Join us next week. Bye. Season 3,
Bye.
Double Feature Movie Club. Bye.
Have a good one, everyone.